want so badly to love a book because of the premise. That's how I felt about A Tempest of Tea by Hafsa Faisal. So much so that this was actually meant to be a buddy read between Lauren and I. And by this, I mean that I suggested it probably 1,000,000 times. Come on, 5 ragtag friends committing a heist, the leader of whom runs a tea shop that moonlights as a vampire cafe. Love, political intrigue, magical realism. This sounds like a dream book for 2 people who yearn for the feeling that Six of Crows brought us many moons ago. Tragically, the yearning continues. If you're new, I'm Randy and this is Crows Before Bros. This is a silly little YouTube channel where my best friend Lauren and I talk about books. A note that I am recovering from some sickness, so if I sound a little like Squidward, it's just because I've got a lot going on in my sinuses right now. This review will have some light spoilers, but nothing too major. A Tempest of Tea by Hafsa Faisal is 338 pages and it's a YA fantasy. It is the beginning of, I think, a duology, certainly the first in a series. This book got a lot of hype as it was coming out, a lot of ARC readers coming out and being like, this book is gonna rock your socks, and I was ready. And my socks were not rocked, guys. This book started off so strong. We're immediately introduced to Arthie and Jin Casimir, who are 2 people who only have each other. They're kind of quasi-siblings, and together they own and run a tea shop called the Spindrift. Arthie, our main character, is described as something of a mastermind, and Jin is the bronze to her brains. He is smooth, and he is strong, and he's badass. He's kind of the heart of their operations. When there is a threat that the tea house is on the brink of being shut down, Arthie joins forces with mysterious city guard Laith, who has kind of hired her, I think, blackmailed her, maybe, into stealing a mysterious and critical piece of documentation. This highly mysterious document will save the tea house, I think? I don't know. Anyway, from here, Arthie gathers the rest of her crew. Flick, who is exactly like other girls but also commits forgery, and Mateo, who is a vampire we meet in the very first chapter when Arthie accidentally has him shot for his extended debts owed to Spindrift. Obviously, he's not dead. He's a vampire. It's just like a threatening shot. One thing that really drew me into this book right from the beginning, and even before I started reading it, was this premise of this tea house. A normal tea shop by day, it quickly is transformed into this kind of sultry, dark vampire club at night through a series of hidden bars and doors and tables that flip and hide and change. And there's this wonderful scene where the guard is coming to check in on Spindrift. Jin says, the guard is coming, we have 7 minutes, so we have 3 minutes to get everyone out and 3 minutes to flip the bar back into a cafe. And they do it, and it's like, it's like tantalizing in this moment. There's a guard who goes and he's like knocking on a piece of wood and it's hollow and you know there's something hidden in there, and it was such a cool scene, and I was like, yes, this is the book, this is what I wanted. Problem is, never see the tea house again, except for like a critical moment later, I guess, but I feel like that one doesn't count. Really, you see the tea house in all its glory in like chapter 2, and that's it.
That's it.
And that's it.
This book is primarily character driven, which I do like, but I'm somebody who so badly needs both character and plot to like really get me into a story. I went into this thinking it's a heist book because that's what the internet told me it was, and I would argue that it is primarily not a heist book. At most, it's kind of a teenage drama with like a bit of romance set to the backdrop of a heist. Very minimal heisting actually occurs. We see Flick and Jin immediately have a connection, and I think this is the most compelling part of the story. I felt like I was reading it and I was like, I just want those kids to work out, you know? They were honestly wonderful, and I really liked the kind of playfulness between the 2 of them. Beyond those 2, you have a weird, almost love triangle with Arthie, Laith, and Mateo. And it's pretty obvious that they're going for like the Arthie Laith, but then whenever Mateo's in the room, she's like, a hot boy? In my vicinity? This brings me to one of my biggest complaints about this book, which is our main character, Arthie Casimir. She's our mastermind, she's blackmailing people, she's got dirt on dirt. She is cold and calculating and cruel. and boring. Often when we see Arthie's perspective, she's just kind of waffling about, being like, oh, I shouldn't like Leith, but oh, he's kind of cute. And oh, Mateo is so attractive. And that's kind of her whole perspective whenever we're reading her POV. The girl cannot handle there being two cute boys. The rest of the time with Arthie is spent running the same mental spirals about her backstory, which could have been really compelling and at the beginning I found really interesting, but I feel like we didn't go anywhere with this. We didn't get much character growth within that. I wanted so badly for her to be cool and closed off and terrible and to still at the end of the day love the people around her so fiercely, and I just feel like she didn't do any of those things very well. Every aspect of it flatlined for me. My second big complaint here is the heist. I want a good heist novel. Is that too much to ask? Without going into too many details, I really could only loosely tell you kind of what the heist was. I know they needed to steal a document, and I know they needed these kind of like medallion marker things to get into the building. And the building is apparently incredibly difficult to get into, but I don't know why. They just need these markers. And then, who knows, just find the paper? We don't have any information. I'm torn between, am I lost because it was convoluted and there was too much information, or am I lost because there was not enough information? And I'm leaning towards the second one. I really don't think we were given much about what this heist needed to be other than get in and get the paper. It's apparently the hardest place in the city to steal from, but you don't get any sense of why. And that feeling is immediately erased when halfway through the heist, it's resolved through a personal connection who rolls up, spews like 3 chapters of exposition at you, and then just helps them walk right out like it's nothing. Suddenly, you're at the halfway point of this book and you're thinking, huh, well that's already everything that I thought was gonna happen in this book. And you're pretty much right. One big thing happens right after that, and the rest is just people kind of wallowing around and talking to each other and talking to parents and talking through exposition, and then it's the last like 15% it picks up again. It took me 3 weeks to read through this portion of the book because I just didn't care and I didn't want to read it. It put me in like a real reading slump. I do think there's some redemption in the final 15% of this book when it remembers, oh right, I do need to have a plot and I do need to take the reader somewhere. For things that did work for me, Faisal's storytelling and writing itself is pretty enjoyable. I at no point tagged something as like, well that was weird, or I didn't like how that was described. I think her world building is great. She has a lot of exposition in the book, but I think that it was, for the most part, interesting. I could see what she wanted to make this book, and it just didn't have enough like oomph behind it to make me excited about it. I also really enjoyed some of the characters. I really loved Flick and Jin. I think that they are the highlight of this book for me, for sure. I was always happy when they appeared on page, and especially happy when we got a Flick POV. I so wanted this book to be a 5-star. And I know I railed on it a bit here, but it's not a terrible book. It's not a bad book by any means. It's just, I think, maybe a case of misplaced expectations. I wanted this book to be the next Six of Crows, and I do think this book also was trying to do that a little bit. That's maybe why I'm walking away a bit disappointed. Lauren did choose to DNF it partway through that middle portion. She just felt that it was uninspired, and I am inclined to agree with her. Had this been a buddy read, the song choice that I would have given it is My Happy Ending by Avril Lavigne, because it was everything that I wanted. It was meant to be, it was supposed to be, but we lost it. In the end, I gave Tempest of Tea a 3.25 star, and even as I'm saying it, I know in my heart that should maybe be like a 3, maybe a 2.75, but I'm giving that bonus half a point for my dream of what I wanted it to be. Have you ever been so hyped for a book only to be so deeply let down by it? Tell me below. This might be the extreme example for me. Lots of TikTok books have let me down, but I think my expectations going into this book made it fall the hardest. If you are looking for a YA series that feels a little like Six of Crows, it's not really the same vibe, but it is kind of found family, it is kind of heisty. I would recommend the Gilded Wolves trilogy. Now that I'm done reading A Tempest of Tea, which took me all of March I'm finally on to some books I'm really excited about. I'm reading The Mountain in the Sea by Ray Naylor, which is another book I have huge hopes for. I'm also reading The Savage Song by V.E. Schwab. I'm reading The Wind-Up Bird Chronicles, and I just got my beta copy of You and I Collide, which is by friend of the show Liz, and so very excited to be beta reading that one. Overall, hyped to leave this slump that this book put me in behind and go into the springtime feeling renewed and rejuvenated like a little grass blooming out of the ground. If you've stuck around till the end, thank you so much for watching. We love you and we'll see you next time. Bye! Mwah.